There's so much value in me time, like in just being, not having to do all the time. That's what allows us to recharge, to refuel ourselves. And when we have that space, when we come back, we can be that much more present to whatever the demand is or whatever the task at hand may be.
Welcome back to our Happy Rainmakers video series where point one can make a difference. I'm really glad to be joined today by Courtney Schulnick, who is a former practicing attorney turned mindfulness coach. Thanks so much for being with us, Courtney.
Thank you for having me here.
We've been talking about how lawyers, they need to care for themselves better, and you had some excellent suggestions. I guess now the next question is, how can they set boundaries to make time for this?
As lawyers, we clock a lot of hours and we spend so much of our lives invested in our cases, our clients, at our firms or workplaces. And back in the day, I think it was much easier to kind of have these clear boundaries where once we step out of the office and go about our way, for the most part, our work stayed in the confines of our offices. Fast forward to modern day times, and thanks to technology, our work can be accessible basically 24/7. So I think that it comes down to us having to be very clear and firm with ourselves, what boundaries are needed. And then in turn, also getting really clear with our colleagues, with our bosses, with our teams, because otherwise it's like a slippery slope. We can send messages that let others know that we're taking good care of ourselves. And it's not to be disrespectful, but by caring for ourselves in this way, by having those firm boundaries, that we can be more present in turn when we're actually working on our cases or when we're actually responding to a client or a colleague.
Is there a better way to communicate with the people you're working with to figure out boundaries that work for the clients and the firm?
Designating certain times of your day. So maybe that's early in the morning that you say, okay, from this time to this time, I'm going to check up on emails. But when we're just endlessly going back to our phones and not having any type of structure, our work is going to make its way into every other part of our lives so that we're not truly present for the moments where we need to disconnect from our work. We need that space so that we can recharge ourselves. And when we designate time that is for our work or is to be available to respond to emails, that we're that much more present for it. So we're not straddled between the two. We're not making careless mistakes, that we're very clear in, okay, this is time to get back to so-and-so, and this is my time. But I do think that when you're a younger associate, it's really challenging to find that sweet spot because you want to show that you're really invested in these cases, that you want to do a good job, that you are the person who the team can turn to. So it's not going to happen overnight, but without having a sense of intentionality, we're going to get so pushed and pulled by the demands of this type of work.
Sure. And I don't mean to say it's only the junior people on the team. Sometimes the team leader has to feel responsive to the client, has to feel responsive to all the people asking questions who are lower down on the team and can't move forward until those questions are answered. And that person feels like even though they've gotten to a point where they're quite successful and they've achieved so much in their career, they can never turn it off.
Taking intentional moments for ourselves, there's so much value in me time, like in just being, not having to do all the time. That's what allows us to recharge, to refuel ourselves. And when we have that space, when we come back, we can be that much more present to whatever the demand is or whatever the task at hand may be. But I think we have such a perfectionist chip in us where we don't feel like we can ever turn off. And we may feel like it's selfish or irresponsible, but it's probably one of the most responsible things that we can do, not only for ourselves, but for our clients and those who we work for.
Well, thank you very much. I think that anybody who listens to this and isn't setting boundaries so far can maybe think of one thing that feels important to them. Maybe setting a boundary that every Thursday night I stop answering email at 6 o'clock and I have dinner with my family. Or every Saturday I take 2 hours to take a walk around my neighborhood, or something that feels small and attainable, and see how you do with that. Thank you so much.
Thank you.